Welcome back to the CourseLeaf CIM User Guide. In Part 6 of this series, we will cover course content. Alright, so we left off on Student Learning Outcomes, also referred to as SLOs. Student Learning Outcomes are statements that specify what students will know, be able to do, or be able to demonstrate when they have completed or participated in a course. SLOs specify an action by the student that must be observable, measurable, and able to be demonstrated. Well-written SLOs use action verbs, the present tense, and avoid terms such as will appreciate or become aware or understand, because those aren't measurable. Appropriate verbs linked to a hierarchical ordering of cognitive skills can be found in Bloom's taxonomy. I've posted a helpful graphic to the Canvas shell, so I recommend using that as a guide when writing your SLOs. Janet DeWald is our technical data specialist, can also assist you as well. So the first SLO for a United States history course will be, upon satisfactory completion of the course, students will be able to compare and contrast the historical development of two colonies from the area that eventually became the United States. And to add a second one, we'll press the green button. And our second SLO will be evaluate the various causes of the American War for Independence. And again, you can add more rows and remove them with the red X. Next, we have course objectives. Objectives articulate the knowledge and skills a student should acquire by the end of the course, the intended result of instruction. These key elements must be taught every time a course is delivered. Objectives should highlight what any faculty member teaching the course must focus on, be stated in terms of what the student will be able to do, connect to achievement of the course goals, reflect the level of rigor appropriate for the course, be concise but complete, use verbs showing active learning, be broad in scope, not too detailed or specific, grouping individual items into sets which share commonalities. Typically, courses have between 3 and 10 objectives, but quantity should be appropriate for units and hours assigned to the course. If the course is aligned with a CID descriptor, it must meet all the same course objectives, even if they are worded differently. Critical thinking involves higher-level cognitive processes, such as analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information, and these should be demonstrated in the objectives for all degree-applicable courses, but not all objectives need to reflect critical thinking. Again, use Bloom's taxonomy for appropriate action words. The section is similar in format to SLOs, so again, we will put in our first course objective for our United States history course. So interpret historical data and specific events so as to describe their meaning and significance in explaining American history. And our second one will be arrange major and significant occurrences in early American history in proper chronological order. Moving down, next we have the lecture course content. This must be a complete list of all the topics to be taught in the course. It should be written in an outline format with topics and subtopics in great enough detail to facilitate articulation with comparable courses at both 2-year and 4-year institutions. You should use numbers and letters, not bullets. Content should be subject-based, not expressed in terms of students' capabilities. If the course is aligned with the CID descriptor, it must cover all the same content listed in the descriptor, but you may also list additional topics. You can add optional content, just write optional next to it, and there is spell check, which is great, and all your standard formatting tools. The best way to do the outline formatting is to select the numbered list function. So I will do that and put our sample course content in. And remember, you can adjust the size of the box by dragging the arrow in the corner. Now we have laboratory or activity content. This should be a complete list of the topics taught in the lab portion of the course. For those courses that combine lecture and lab into a single course, While the course content would list the topic, the lab content should list the demonstrations, activities, and experiments involving that topic in more detail. If your course does not have a lab portion, type none in this box. Alright, so now we have methods of evaluation. Title V requires that for credit courses designated as either degree applicable or non-degree applicable, the course grade must be based on demonstrated proficiency in the subject matter and the ability to demonstrate that proficiency, at least in part by means of written expression, that may include essays, or in courses where the curriculum committee deems them to be appropriate, by problem-solving exercises or skills demonstration by students. Faculty must select which of these methods students will use to demonstrate proficiency in the subject matter of the course. So for our sample history course, we will say written expression. Students must demonstrate that they have acquired the skills specified in the student learning outcomes. Student grades shall be based on multiple measures of student performance. Instructors will develop appropriate classroom assessment methods and procedures for calculating student grades, and list the assessment methods used in each class section in their syllabus. Because learning experiences in college courses must either include critical thinking or experiences leading to this capability, methods of evaluation must effectively assess students' mastery of critical thinking. This list provides typical classroom assessment techniques and required assignments, so check all that are deemed appropriate. So we will check essay exams, maybe a group project, definitely objective exams, maybe quizzes, reports and papers, and maybe a research paper. Next, we have instructional methodology. The methods of instruction will illustrate ways in which the course content may be presented to enable students to meet course objectives and outcomes. Specify the methods of instruction that may be employed in this course by choosing from the list provided. So, audio-visual presentations, if you show any kind of video, class discussion, computer-aided presentations if you use PowerPoint at all. If you want your course to be offered online in any portion, make sure you select this distance education box. We listed field trips above, so we will select field trips here, instructor-guided interpretation and analysis, and lecture. Now it asks us to describe specific examples of methods the instructor will use. You must provide examples of methodology used by the instructor to cause learning and to describe what students will be doing and experiencing with respect to the instructor, others, and their environment. These examples can begin with the instructor will, but may also describe activities the students will be doing that lead to learning. The example should be appropriate to the objectives. If an objective is to physically perform, then lecture as the sole method of learning is not enough. Methods should be presented in a manner that reflects integration with stated learning objectives and likelihood that they will lead to students achieving those outcomes. Some of the methods must effectively teach critical thinking, and the environment in which the learning occurs often needs to be described. This list does not have to be exhaustive. For our example course, I will create a numbered list, and the first method the instructor will use is instructor will direct interactive instructional activities asking students to compare and contrast historical data and primary source material with the secondary account of American history presented in their text. Another example would be guided and focused class discussions of representative historical events. These discussions would solicit student opinions on the relationship between such past events and their present values and lives. For other examples of instructional methodology, see existing outlines in CIM. Alright, so the next section is representative course assignments. Assignments should be presented in a manner that reflects integration with the stated objectives. Assignments should support students achieving the course objectives and the ability to perform the student learning outcomes. Assignments should demonstrate appropriate rigor for the level and difficulty of the course. Assignments should include critical thinking for degree applicable courses. Assignments in articulated transfer level courses should be aligned with the types of assignments typically found in comparable courses at the UC and CSU. Attendance is not a part of a course subject matter or a discipline-specific skill, and therefore may not be separately assessed as a part of the course curriculum, though it may be captured through participation requirements or specific in-class activities, assignments, or quizzes. So first we have writing assignments. Title V requires that grades are based on demonstrated proficiency in subject matter and the ability to demonstrate that proficiency, at least in part by means of essay. So, unless a course instead uses problem solving or skills demonstration by students, essays, research papers, and other writing assignments should be reflected in this section. So, a couple of examples for our course would be a summary of what was learned from reading an assigned textbook, a research paper or a research presentation on a topic like the gradual institutionalization of slavery in colonial Virginia. Next, we have critical thinking assignments. Degree applicable credit courses require students to demonstrate critical thinking and application of concepts at the college level. For non-degree applicable courses, the instruction in critical thinking should prepare students for the independent work they will be doing in degree applicable courses. This includes the development of self-direction and self-motivation. An example of critical thinking assignments for our U.S. History course would be participate in class and small group discussions debating the impact of the market revolution. A second example would be compare and contrast the political and social cultures of the antebellum northern and southern states. For reading assignments, list assignments including the required textbooks, if applicable. If course objectives include, for example, literature analysis, then reading assignments would be expected. A couple of examples are the student will read and properly respond to questions in a course workbook in the subject area of U.S. history. And complete readings from supplemental primary source documents, secondary source monographs, journal articles, handouts, or internet websites pertinent to class discussion and/or writing assignments as determined by the instructor. For skills demonstration, most courses in CTE, PE, studio art, and other primary activity courses would be expected to have assignments both inside and outside of class that allow students to demonstrate the skills they are acquiring in the course. If there are specific skills demonstrations that are required by industry standards or external certifications and accrediting bodies, they should be identified in this area. This doesn't really apply to our history course, but say for instance this was a dental hygiene course. A skills demonstration would be students will demonstrate competence in the use of ultrasonic scaler and inserts. For other assignments, list any assignments that do not fit in the categories above. For instance, visit a historic site or museum and write a critical summary on a curated exhibition such as the Autry Museum. And another example would be prepare written and/or oral presentations on topics such as the role of women in the Civil War. And finally, we have representative outside assignments. Outside assignments refers to work done outside of scheduled class time or at home. These assignments must show independent work at the same level of rigor and must be sufficient to meet the minimum outside of class hours. Lecture classes require 2 hours of outside work for every 1 lecture hour in class. So our 3-unit lecture course requires 105 outside of class hours per semester. Labs do not require outside assignments. This can include supplemental reading beyond assigned text. In this section, you should list the assignments above that would be completed outside of class and any additional assignments that are more general to justify 105 outside of class hours. So I'm going to add the assignments that we already listed above. And some additional assignments would be weekly short essay assignments related to class lecture, library inquiry activities and assignments, internet inquiry activities such as locating bodies of evidence and documents pertaining to the material covered in class. There should be enough in this section that the committee isn't left wondering how it equals 105 hours of work. Once you complete this section, you should go back through the outline to check for integration. For instance, with course objectives. Are the course objectives listed covered in the course content section? It must be obvious to the reader of the outline that the students are being taught what you are measuring them in the objectives. So make sure that each objective is being taught in the content. For example, one of our objectives is evaluate the various causes of the American War for Independence. Then under our course content, the American War for Independence and its causes should be a topic, and you can see that it is under points 5 and 6. Moving along to methods of instruction. These should support specific course objectives as well. Looking at what we have here, we could be a little bit more specific. So let's add to the sentence that says guided and focused class discussions of representative historical events, such as the causes of the American War for Independence. We could also add another example like, instructor will show a video on the American War for Independence. And finally, look at the methods of evaluation and representative course assignments. Assignments and methods should support the students achieving the course objectives and having the ability to perform the SLOs. Assignments are also usually the way faculty assess whether or not students have met the course SLOs. If a faculty member is planning to assess each SLO through existing assignments, the outline should have adequate assignments listed to accomplish that. So somewhere in here we should see an assignment that evaluates if students know the causes of the American War for Independence. So again, we have our course objectives that are being covered in our course content, which are being taught by these methods and are being evaluated by these assignments. That brings us to the end of this video. In the next and final section, we will cover articulation and resources. If you have any questions, you can post them to the forum on the Canvas training course, or feel free to contact me directly.